Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Miss Crochet and Coffee here, and today we're back with another knitting machine tutorial on how to use the Sentro 48 needle knitting machine. So as you can see, it has our counter there. It's not the most reliable, I'm not gonna lie, it's not the most reliable counter, but it is there. There is a tension bar for loose, medium, or tight. And it does also, like the rest of the machines, do a tube or a panel. It also does have the suction cup feet so that you can suction it to whatever surface that you're working. I am working on my countertop, so I don't have to really worry about suctioning being an issue. But if you're working on a surface that the suction cups do not want to stick to, try using some packing tape. Put the packing tape where you would have the feet of the machine, and there you go. You're ready to roll. Now, to start this, don't worry about my coffee over there, okay? To start this, what we're going to do is we have to thread our machine. Again, this is the 48 needle. So the needles are pink in this machine instead of the 40 needle where they're white. Now the indicator for the last needle in this machine is white. As you can see right here, it's white. So when you start or stop a project, you're going to look for the white needle on this machine. Okay? So I'm going to hit my restart button on my timer a few times. And now we're going to thread the machine. Now, one thing I have noticed about the Sentro 48 is that it sputters. Mine sputters when I'm threading it. Not a big deal. I don't know if it just needs, the gears need to be greased or what have you, but mine sputter. It doesn't stop the machine from working. It doesn't affect anything. It works perfectly fine once I'm done threading, but when you're going slow, it sputters. So I'll show you what I mean here in a few minutes. So we're going to zoom you back out and we're going to thread our machine. So to thread your machine, and I'm going to use some waste yarn for this project, and I'll show you why I'm using the waste yarn at the end of the video. So to thread the machine, we're going to grab our waste yarn. We're going to loop it in that first needle, the white one, or if you have the Sentro knitting machine, it's going to be the white needle. And then you're going to do every other needle is going to get hooked. So you're going to go behind the next one, in front. See how it's sputtering? Behind, in front, behind, in front. And you're going to do that the whole way around. Yeah, see, as long as you're going in a fluid motion, it doesn't sputter. There's the sputtering. And we're back to the white needle. So then what we're going to do is we're going to put it in this guide. So the guide right here, you want to make sure it's all the way in that guide. Okay. And then I'm going to take this little happy clip, you little happy guy, and I'm going to stick it on the tension bar down here. So you see how there's a slit right here? I'm going to take and put this over that slit, making sure not to catch the yarn, but just so it can hold the yarn in place. Because sometimes, depending on how thick the yarn is, the machine will, the tension will get really tight, and it'll end up jumping out of the tension bar. So I'm actually going to use a medium for this, because this is this is Red Heart Super Saver Stripes. So that's the waste yarn that I just chose to use for this, because I only had a little bit of it left. I'm going to put it in this medium tensioner. And then I'm going to use the clip to hold it in place. And then I'm just going to slowly go around, making sure that the yarn catches every needle. And with your waste yarn, I would say go around about 3 or 4 rows. Round 2. And again, that counter is not the most reliable. I wouldn't rely on it. If yours works perfectly fine, then that's great. Mine's hasn't worked perfectly fine since probably like the second or third day I got it. It's been a little bit unreliable, so I've had to learn how to eyeball my projects. Not a big deal, because the other machines, the other Sentro machines don't have the counter on them either. We're going to go around one more time till we find that white needle. There it is. We're going to make sure it loops on the white needle. We're then going to take our waste yarn out of the tensioner, out of the guide, It's looped onto the white. We're just going to throw it in the middle there. We're going to start off with this purple yarn. Now this is Karen's Simply Soft Sparkle. Oh, sorry. Let's zoom you out a little bit. This is Karen's Simply Soft Party Yarn. So it has like a little shimmer in it. And I don't know which color this one is. The tag for this one came off, but the other color I'm using is Royal Sparkle. And I'm going to put this in a first tension bar. I'm going to make sure it's all the way down in that guide. And because we caught the white needle and not the needle that's sticking up, we have to make sure that it catches that one. So we're going to put it, we're going to leave about a 5-inch tail, which we're going to throw in the middle here. We got to make sure it's down in that guide, because if it's not down in that guide, and both of them actually. So if you see here, there's this one here and then this one. You want to make sure it's down in both of them, because if not, it will skip the stitches. So we're then going to turn slowly to make sure it catches it. We're going to go around, and I'm just going to hold this with my hand. All right, and then we're just going to throw that ball of yarn on the floor. And what I like to do, because this machine, for me, has been dropping stitches a lot lately. So I'm going to hold on to the yarn to give it a little bit more tension, and I'm going to pull some yarn out. So I'm going to gather up. I'm going to gather some yarn here. So I have a nice amount of yarn just sitting out, so that it's not pulling or anything on the yarn or creating any more tension that is more tension than what's needed. So I'm just going to pull some yarn out. I'm just going to stick it here on the counter. And I'm just going to hold it with my hand. We're going to go again. And I'm just letting it guide through my fingers. I'm not pulling or tugging on it. I'm just letting it do its thing in case it catches a knot. This is a great way to make sure that if there's a knot in your yarn, you catch it before it gets to this tensioner, because it'll just jack that tensioner up and it'll essentially stop you to let you know, hey, something's not right, check your machine. So we're going to keep going. And we got a knot, so I'm going to take a minute to take that knot out. Make sure your suction cups are secure so that they're not bouncing around. We're going to go around one more time. We're going to make sure that white needle catches the purple yarn, because now we're going to change colors. So to then change colors, we are going to snip our purple yarn. Take it out of the tensioner. Make sure it's caught on that white one, and then we're going to throw the tail in. And then we're going to grab our other yarn, which is the Royal Blue Sparkle. We're going to make sure it's down in that tensioner real good. And see, when I took it, because the purple yarn caught here last, this is the next needle that you want it to catch. So you have to make sure that it's all the way down in the guide. And then when it's down, I like to hold my finger there. and then bring it around, because if you don't, it won't catch, and then you'll end up with a slip stitch. And then to put a little bit more tension on that side, I'm going to put my little clip on it. And that'll help it gain tension so that it'll catch the stitches. Make sure it's down in that guide. I'm going to put my little clip back down here to make sure it doesn't jump out on me. And then we're going to spin. All right, so we're going to change color again. So we're going to leave a nice size tail, and this one's already snipped. Make sure it catches on that white hook. Throw that tail in. We're going to grab our purple yarn again. Put it in the tensioner. Put it in the guide. Again, put your finger there to make sure it stays in so you can loop this hook right past the guide. If you think you need some tension on it, go ahead and put a paper clip or a clip or some sort onto your yarn. We're going to go slow to make sure it catches. Oh, we're going to put our little clip back on our yarn here, down here on the tensioner. We're going to pull some more yarn off so we have a nice pooling of yarn so we're not putting any extra stress on the machine. And for a head wrap or ear warmer, I like to do about 75 to 80 rounds, depending on the circumference of the person's head that you're making it for. For my head, I usually do about 80 rounds. So I think I have a 23 inch circumference. I think. I have a big head. Don't judge me. All right. So we have a nice pooling of yarn going on. So we're going to put our snips back in the bag. And then we're going to go. And I'm checking the stitches. I'm checking for any kind of fuzz or fur because I do have dogs. And we're going to go back to the beginning. Uh-oh. Make sure it's sitting down. We got fuzzies. Find that white needle. Make sure it catches. Snip off your yarn. This is where we're changing colors. You can change colors in a project as much as you want. Just be careful to make sure that you're catching your guides. So it caught that purple. So we're going to go ahead and put that in the clip here. There's just for a little bit of extra tension. We're going to have a nice sized tail here. We're going to go behind this first one and then go over. We're going to loop it down in the guide. Put it in the tension bar. We're going to unclip this. Pin it all together. Now I want this to be tight. I don't want it to be able to wiggle, so we're going to make sure it doesn't wiggle. There we go. We're just going to go around, make sure it catches all the needles. Gone around once. Twice. And what I usually do to gauge it, which if we move you over a little bit, you'll be able to see. Once it hits the countertop, I know I only have a couple more rows to go. So blue, we're probably going to end on the blue. So we're going to keep going. And again, let's pull up some yarn. Let's make sure we have a decent amount of yarn here. We're going to put our snips away again so we don't hurt ourselves. We're going to get some yarn. Plus, it just makes it going through the machine that much easier. So having a nice pool of yarn, always helpful. And then I'm just going to hold on to it just in case it decides to ball up. Also, I put just a little extra tension on it. We got a little knot there. There we go. It tends to want to twist up here. Just unballing my yarn here. So now we're going to get back to the beginning. White hook, okay? So now that we're back at the beginning, we're at that white hook again. We're going to, we're going to bring you down. We caught the white hook. Now you're going to need some more waste yarn. All right, so I have my waste yarn. I'm going to make sure this catches on that white hook. I'm going to put my waste yarn in. Now my waste yarn is a little bit thicker than the yarn that I was using. They're both size 4, but Care and Simply Soft is always a little bit slicker than Red Heart. So Once it's behind there, I make sure it's in my guides. Make sure it's in the tension bar. We're going to put it back in the medium, not the tight. If you're having problems with your machine dropping stitches on this machine, adjust your tension. Test your tension out. Put it in each tension bar. See how it works. Try holding on to it to give it that little bit of extra tension if you need to. So we're going to catch that first one. And we're going to do 3 or 4 rounds with the waste yarn. This is getting the blue off the hooks. This is 3. We're going to go around one more time. All right, we're going to make sure that white one catches and goes down into the machine. You want it to go down into the machine to catch that. We're going to snip that off. Throw the tail in. We're going to raise you up so you can see what I'm doing here. Now, to get your project off the machine, it's a little bit different than when you make a hat, because you use waste yarn, and that waste yarn is going to hold your stitches in place. So now what you're going to do, you're going to spin it. 2 rounds, two full spins, and this will come off your machine. This is like my favorite part. So just go crank it. There's nothing in the machine. Your waste yarn and everything's hanging on the inside. You're just going to crank it. Now, once it gets back here, it's going to start falling off. Boom. You're done. So, we're going to move our machine. Move our waste yarn. Here's our tube. Now, you can see it's got little holes in it. So, we're going to flip it inside out. It's got little holes where the yarn, where we change colors. To fix those little holes, you just put a little knot in it. So, you're just going to tie it like you would a shoe. Okay? So, there's 3 spots where we changed holes. So, take the 2 yarn colors, tie a little knot, and that'll close up that hole. You don't have to do it super tight, but that'll close up the holes. We're going to do it again here. This tail is pretty long on this one. And I put a double knot in it just so it doesn't come loose. Make sure the second stitch or the second knot is a little bit tighter. This just closes up those holes. All right, so we're going to flip it back the other way. Look at that beautiful color. Oh, love this. And that took us about 20 minutes. Now, if I wasn't jibber jabber and I was just working on this, this would be about a 15-minute project. Yeah, you heard right. 15 minutes to make this. Isn't it gorgeous? Oh my God, I just love the colors. All right, so there's our head wrap. And it's going to curl up on the ends. Don't worry about it. We'll get them. Just going to make sure everything's nice and even. What I like to do is wherever my yarn starts on my project here. So that goes on the inside. So I ended on the blue, so I should have a blue and a gray strand here. And I ended on I started on purple, so I should have gray and purple here. Now the tails on the inside, if they become cumbersome or you want to get rid of those, because you tied them, you can cut those off. So you don't have a bunch of long tails. They're going to be hidden inside the head wrap anyways. So we're just going to snip those. I'm going to roll that back out. Now what I like to do is make sure that those 2 ends are on the sides. So I put those on the sides like this. We're going to unroll it. It's going to want to keep curling up on you, and it's because, you know, it's on a circular machine, so it's going to curl up. Not a big problem. Just unroll it like this. All right. Now when you get it to this part, on this part is where you're going to seal the two ends. That's where your crochet hook that comes with your machine comes in handy. So what I do, and I'm right-handed, so I turn it this way. You fold down to the first row after your waste yarn. So I have and you want to make sure your waste yarn is a contradictory color. I will add that edit into the beginning of the video because I didn't say that and I do apologize. So I'll add a little edit in there. But you want to make sure it's a contradictory color so you can find the stitches and where they started on your waste yarn, because you're going to get rid of that waste yarn. It's not going to stay on there. So when I fold it like this, and I have it folded where the tails are on the opposite end, I'm going to crochet this closed to the opposite end. And how I do that is I fold it in half. I then put my needle underneath that first stitch. That's the very first stitch after my waste yarn. And you can tell because it's the waste yarn and then that row. Then what you're going to do is you're going to get that first loop on your hook. And you're going to go up. So you're going to go up into this next one here. You're going to go underneath that one and pull it through that first one. So you're going to go down next, down, pull it through. This is going to close your head wrap. So if you missed it, with the stitch on your hook, you're going to go up under the one on the top and then pull it through what's on your hook. And then you're going to go down to the bottom and pull that through what's on your hook. Now you're going to go back and forth doing that the whole way to the other side of your head wrap. This is another reason why you want your tension to be good, because you want it to be the same throughout. You also want to make sure you don't drop any stitches as you're closing this up. And when you go through the stitches, you're only going through one. So you probably see the two lines here. You're only going through that top one. You don't need to worry about that bottom one. Just go through the top one. I'm going to scoot you over a little bit because my hands I see my hands going out of camera. You're going to just make sure. And you're going to do this to both sides. So you're going to go up and down. You're going to do this to both sides. All right, and now we're getting back to the beginning, or the end. You just want to make sure you grab all your stitches. And when you're sure you have all your stitches, you're then going to take your tail. And with your tail, you're going to loop it around your hook and pull it through. And then you're going to pull. Okay? That's how you close your head wrap on the sides. Now for the waste yarn, that was just there to help you guide sewing that top part shut. So now we just pull that out. And don't worry, it doesn't always come out this easily. That's why I told you to do a number of rows, because I found if you do more rows than just 2 or 3, it's easier to come out. So we're just pulling that out. And you can recycle this waste yarn. Use it again for your next head wrap or ear warmer. It doesn't have to be thrown away. You already know it's the perfect length. So we just went ahead and pulled out that waste yarn. And looky there, nice straight edges. We called out all of our stitches. So we're going to do it again to the other side. So I'm not going to make you sit through me doing it on the other side, which I'll do one and then I'm going to probably speed it up. And then when I'm done, I'll show you what to do next. All right, so just to show you again real quick, fold it in half, make sure your tails are on this side. Find that beginner stitch. You're going to go up underneath it, and then you're going to go from top, bottom, all the way down. So you're going to find the next stitch, go underneath it, pull it through. You're going to go down to this bottom one. Go to the top. Make sure you're not doing this stitch on the bottom. Make sure it's that very first one after your waist yarn. So you have your waist yarn, which is this gray, and then that first loop is purple. You're going to do that one. And then you're just going to pull it through. Try not to tug on those stitches too much because you don't want to tighten up your stitches. So we're back to the beginning. What we're going to do now is we're going to untangle this because apparently it's wrapped around there. So we're just going to pull. Again, we're going to yarn over, pull that through. And I always leave like a little bit on the back of it. Then I'm going to pull it through there. And we're going to make a knot. And again, that side is closed. And we're going to attempt to take off the waist yarn, see if it'll come off nice and easily, or if we're going to have to pry it off. Looks like we're going to have to pry this one off. See, it doesn't always come off nice and easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to pull it through here. And because I like to recycle, I will pull it through the loops. If you don't want to recycle it, you can always cut it. Just make sure you don't cut your stitches. We're just going to pull it through here. Now it's going to come apart easy. And again, this is your waist yarn, so we don't care that it's coming out of the head wrap because it's not going to stay in there anyways. So we're going to just pull. Looks like it got tangled up in our knot. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cut it. There. Again, that's why it's called waist yarn, in case you need to cut it or anything. Don't get too attached to it or anything. So now our head wrap should look like this. Both sides sewn shut. I just love those colors. And then what you're going to do, because it looks small, right? We didn't tighten the stitches yet, so to tighten them, you pull. It's going to stretch it out a little bit, make it a little bit bigger. And do keep in mind, this is just a tutorial, so if you need to make it bigger or smaller, you do what you have to do. This is also the 48 needle, so it's going to make your head wrap, the width of it, a little bit wider. So if you want a thinner head wrap, you can use the 40 needle or the 22 needle machines, but for this one, we're just using the 48 for adults. We're just going to stretch that out, pull those stitches. Look at that sparkle. Isn't that gorgeous? All right, so our last step is to then sew this together to make it look like it's twisted, because it's called the twisted head wrap, but it's not actually, in fact, twisted. And I'll show you what I mean. You take these two parts and you fold them over each other. So we're going to do like this. We're just going to kind of make a sandwich here. So we're going to make sure that's touching the edge. We're going to pull that tail out. Make sure it's touching the edge. Just like this. And then what I like to do is I like to stab it with my embroidery needle. And then we're going to thread the embroidery needle. Now I'm threading it. You can thread it with the color that's on the outside. So I have blue on the outside on this side with the long tail. This is another reason why you want to keep the tails long. There we go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to sew it. So we're going to go on this side here. We're just going to push it through. And it might be a little hard to get through because it's going to be thick. So you're going to need some elbow grease to get it through there. But this is actually going through pretty nice. And you're going to do this the whole way up to the other side. So we're just going to stab it. And this part is not going to be shown, so it doesn't have to be super pretty. So if you're not a perfectionist or anything, you can just sew it up like this. Get down to the end here. And if it slips out, I like to keep it poked through. I'm going to twist the yarn because sometimes I like to come untwisted. Put it back through and then just pull it. And then we have our other color on this side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it back through to the other side. So I'm going to go underneath all these loops. Once I get it secure underneath there, I'm going to thread it again. And I'm just going to pull it through. And it's going to be a little tight. There we go. So we pulled it through. What are you about? What are you doing? So I'm not sure what this is, so we're just going to make a knot with these two loops that just magically came out of nowhere. So your tail is right there. This part, I'm not sure what these two loops came from, so I'm just going to tie them in a knot in case they are something important that's coming loose. All right, and now with my purple, I'm going to do the same thing, except for I'm going to go the opposite way. Just a little extra security just in case. So just going to go through. Pulling that through. And these stitches I'm going to make a little bit bigger because I'm putting them in between the blue stitches. My yarn's getting smaller. So then what I'm going to do, instead of going the rest of the way, I'm just going to go underneath here. I'm actually going to loop these two little loops wherever they came from. I'm going to pull the yarn through to the other side here. So now both my tails are on the same side, and I'm just going to tie a knot in them. You don't want to do it too super tight. That second one you can do tight, but that first one, don't do it too super tight. You don't want it to pull it. So you should have something that looks like this. Okay? Not the best sew job, but you know, it does its job. So we're going to snip these tails. And your head wrap is done. Now you're probably wondering, what did you just do? So you're going to flip it inside out. And there you have it. And you can stretch it because it's going to be all balled up. And there's your head wrap. Now, these head wraps, like I said, they usually take about 15 to 20 minutes. And then if those tails are bothering you, take your crochet hook and kind of weave them in between the layers. But there is your sparkly head wrap. And I hope this tutorial was good for you. I hope it helped you learn how to make a head wrap. If it did, please leave me a little something down in the comments section. Make sure to also give this video a thumbs up if you were able to complete this project. I would love to see if you were able to do it. If you wouldn't mind, come on over to my group. I do have a group on Facebook. It's called Crafters Anonymous with Miss Crochet and Coffee and Rachel Ray. We'd be happy to help you or answer any questions. We also are, it's a group for all crafts. It's not just one craft. So please feel free to share your work there. Just make sure you answer the 3 questions because then that'll automatically enter you into the group. We have to make sure there's bots don't come in, folks. But with that said, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel and like to see more weird random tutorials just like this one, please feel free to hit that subscribe button and the bell to be notified anytime I randomly decide to do a video. Believe me, it's random. With that said, folks, I'm going to have to bid you adieu. But not before I remind you, like I always try to be kind, be courteous, be cool. Bye, guys.